All right, so today I'm going to show you how to use the form builder in our Outfront CRM. So forms can be used on uh, a website, in a funnel. You can directly share links with people to complete a form. And they have a ton of different uses: contacts, signing up for offers, anything like that. So I'm going to teach you how to edit and make your own forms. So when you open up the CRM, this is your dashboard. You're going to go to the Sites tab here on the left-hand panel. And then up along the top, yours might look a little bit different depending on what you have access to based on your package. But you see you have forms right here. So there's three different options. There's Builder, which is where you build your forms; Analyze, which is where you can look at how the forms are doing; and then Submissions, where you can view all of the submissions that have come in for your form. So we'll start with the Builder, but we will go through all three areas. So going to the Builder, you can see we already do have forms built and created. If you have a form and you just need to edit something in it, you can either click directly on the name of the title. As you can see, it's a link, turns blue, or you could manage them here by clicking the three dots on the right-hand side, and you can either preview the form, which will show you what it looks like with all the questions. This is what it's going to look like front facing to the client. You can also, you might not be able to see that because I'm screen sharing, so ignore that part. But basically, it shows you what it looks like client facing, and then you can view submissions, duplicate it if you want to duplicate the form and add it in. Like basically, let's say you have a couple different service offerings where the forms are basically the same. You can duplicate it. You can also use it as a template moving forward, share it. So there's quite a few different options, or just go to edit it. But for right now, we are going to create a form from scratch. So what you do is you go to Add Form, this blue button up here in the right corner. There are some templates with pre-built forms. You can go ahead and cruise those and see if any of those work for you. Most of the time, I just build from scratch. But form templates does have some things that are already pretty stylized, that sort of thing. So starting from scratch, you just make sure it's selected, hit create. Now, all of these builders that are in the CRM are all going to be a drag and drop builder. And what that means is what it sounds like. The elements are all going to be on a side panel, and you drag and drop them in as applicable based on what you're looking for. So most common fields on a form: first name, last name, phone number, email, and then if there's any sort of consent, which is why a form auto-populates with these options, because those are going to be your very most common. And then down here, your button and your privacy policy and terms of service if needed. So let's say we are building a form that is just a generic contact form. So this is going to be great because you just need your first name, last name, phone number is probably a must, email. So first thing you're going to do is up here with the pencil, and it says Form 18, you're going to rename your form. So if you just click on that, let's say contact form test. Name it whatever you want. This is going to be, if you're pulling it up from like a drop-down menu, so if you're integrating it anywhere in the CRM, it will populate with this name in the title. So make sure that you're naming it what it relates to. And then you can just click anywhere else. It auto saves that feature for you. And then if we go through, as you start clicking on these individual elements, so each section is an element. So if you click on here, you can see it boxes around what the element is. And over here, it's going to pull up your settings. So the label for it, first name, obviously makes sense. Placeholder is what shows up inside the box is placeholder. It is placeholding until something else is input. So if you want it, it can say whatever you want. So what is your name? Whatever you want it to say. And then whenever they type, it'll get rid of that and type in whatever they're typing. Um, and then down here, you can play around with some of these other settings too. So like field width, if you're trying to have like multiple things on one line, you can do 50%. Same with this. So if this was 50%, you can have it so that it's not as long. It doesn't take up as much room. But for the most part, I would say 100% is probably what most people are going to use, depending on how you're formatting your form. You can have it as a required option. So like if you want them to have to give their first name, which makes sense, you can have it be required. Last name, I don't know how important that is, but for sure you want a first name and then their contact information. And then you can hit the back button and it just takes you back to the screen. Now let's say you wanted to stylize this a little bit. There's styles and options up here on your right-hand corner with the little lines with the circles. This is where you can fully customize your form. So if you want it as a single column as this, do you want it as a 2-column? Maybe that makes it so it's a little bit smaller on your website and it fits better in the space. Same with a single line. If you're doing like a newsletter sign up, for example, you might just need 2 columns. You might just need first name and email. And in that case, you can get rid of the other columns just by clicking on them and then hitting the little X box. So now you just have a first name and an email. And then if you didn't need anything else, you can get rid of all of it to make it as tiny as possible. And then your form's going to get a lot smaller. You can change how it looks, if it's a line, if you want them inputting the information into a box. If there needs to be, like, if you want to change the width. So like, let's say, since we're making this a single line item right now, you probably want to make those widths for those fields 40% because you do have to contend for the button, which is probably 20. So now you have a 40, 40, 20. So it always obviously has to add up to 100. So this would be how it would populate on the website: a first name, an email, and a button. And then if you wanted to, you can add in spacing and padding as needed. So it has auto padding here. You can do colors and background changes. Let's say you want the background to be blue and your font to be white. If you have brand colors that are very specific that you want shown, you can do background images. I mean, there's so much you can really do with it in terms of customization. There's also themes. If you have something and you're like, hey, like this one's animal lover. So this one is geared towards people who, like, let's say you're a vet office and you have a patient information collection form. This one's going to populate with the little doggy face and then collect their information that way. And then these can be stylized from there. But there are some automation or like automatic ones that you can pick from. I would say most people just go with general style changes, but it is a good option to have. And then to further detail it, there's additional options. So like, what do you want them to do when they submit the form? So if you hit on submit, you can either have it be a message. So they hit submit and then the website would say, thank you for taking the time to complete the form. You can say something like, our team will be in contact. You can have it send them to another page. So open a URL. So let's say you have another page on your website you want to take them to. You would just enter that URL. You can also do an order confirmation. So once an order is successful and they submit that, it'll go ahead and confirm it. And then if you have pixels, so if you're trying to track data, this is going to be where you would input that information. If you need help with Facebook pixels, you can let us know. We're happy to help with that. And then you would select what your ID is, as well as the events that you want to happen. Obviously, on a form, you want submit application, and that is going to, or submit application is the same as like submit form. This way, it tracks every time someone submits a form. So those are the general styling side of things. And then over here, so let's say we're going to make this go back to a default theme just so that it's a little easier to read. Now, depending on what you're trying to do, you have a ton of different options over here. So like let's say you needed their birthday for a birthday club. You can add in the date of birth. With that, you get to select how you want the formatting to be. Obviously, we're in the good old USFA, so we tend to use month, day, year. So that's going to make it so that when they click on the calendar, it shows in the traditional sense that we're used to seeing. You can also add in a bunch of different things. Address. Let's say you need to know where you're going to be going to service a client. So let's say you're a painter and you need to know where they live so you can come out and give them a quote. So there's a couple different options. There is an autocomplete option, or so you can have that on and off where they can search for their address, or you can just have them manually input it. And up here is where you would check what information you need. Website links, all that sort of thing. The things you're going to be most customizing are going to be these ones down here. So text. So this is going to be just straight up text that you're like typing. So like, let's say single line. If you're welcoming someone to the form and explaining what they're doing with it. I lied. That's what's down here. So this is if they're giving in a written response. So what is your favorite food? Simple enough, right? So this way, if you have custom questions that you need to ask someone, you can do multi-line answers. So if it's requiring a little bit more text, like a paragraph answer, you can do a multi-line. And then the other ones you're going to be worrying about probably the most are going to be, you have an option to create a drop down. So let's title this breakfast choices in the theme of food. So that's going to show up here. So breakfast choices. And then over here where it says options, that's where you're going to edit whatever you want them to select from. So let's say bacon, eggs, and toast. So this drop down is for if you have a single option for them to choose from. Drop down and radio are both going to work the exact same way. So it's a single option choice. So radio is a button version of that, and then breakfast choices is a drop down version. Sometimes if you have a long form that you're completing and you want to make it shorter, people do a drop down menu, or like it basically drop down if you're trying to make things as short as possible. And then for this radio option, it's basically a select, like pick from the list with the circle. And so it really just depends. A lot of it's just aesthetics for how you want it to work. So as you can see, this one's a drop down. This one now becomes a bacon, eggs, and toast, and they would select from those three options. Now let's say that you want them to be able to select multiple options. So you're trying to build their breakfast and they have several choices. That's where you would use a checkbox. Um, so for this one, we have to name it something different. It won't let you name a section the same thing you already have because it becomes a custom field after that. Select all. Or like select all that apply, however you want to write that. And then now you have your options again where bacon, eggs, and toast. And from, as you can see, so this one is a select one from the list. And then when you have these square, it's a little checkbox. So they would check all that apply. So depending on what you're trying to have them do really depends on how you ask them these questions. And then here's what I was originally talking about where customized. So this is going to be, so if you want to introduce them to the form, you drag and drop this text and you can say, hello, we would love your breakfast order. From here, you can change your size, your weight, all of that for how it views. In terms of the text, it does correct automatically in real time, so you can see how it looks as you make each change. So depending on if you have brand standards, font colors, size, weight, so let's make it 200, then it's gonna make your font skinnier. If you want to add borders, you can really kind of go crazy with some of the customizations here, depending on what you're looking to do. If you want it to be in bold, if you highlight it, and you can make all the necessary changes from there. The other things you might be adding in that apply are going to be a CAPTCHA. So I'm not a robot. Basically, this helps filter bots out of filling out forms. Terms and conditions. If you have a contact form on your website and you are asking them to give their phone number and you are going to be sending them marketing text messages, you are required by law to have a terms and conditions stating that you're agreeing to receive messages from them by providing their phone number. They're acknowledging that they'll receive messages. And I always customize this a little bit so that the language is a little bit more geared towards my business. But you can add in like reply, stop, to end. So it's going to give them clear instructions here. Hey, when you're in a part of our text group, if you don't want to receive it anymore, you reply stop and it's going to stop it. And you can make it a required section. So if they are filling out that form, they have to agree or that form can't be completed. If you uncheck it, it gives them the option. This is probably technically the more legal way in that you are not forcing them to give their consent to complete the form. But if you require it, it is a way to force people to give you their phone numbers and have to agree that they're giving it to you. Otherwise, you might be forcing people to reach out to you in other ways. So if you want your form to have a higher chance of converting, taking off that requirement might help with that. But then you have to be very mindful of that these people who are coming in from this, there should be an automation set up that if they do not enter or if they do not give consent, that they cannot, that they don't go to your, like, that they go on your do not disturb messaging list. And that's for bulk messaging. And then there's also some other options, like let's say you are an event venue, date pickers. So this way, like what date is your event? Again, you just pick the thing. So if you're trying to schedule tours, trying to schedule a service, that sort of thing, that's where they can pick what date so you can kind of know ahead of time when reaching out. File upload. This is fantastic if you are doing a form for applications. So if you are doing hiring through your website, upload your resume. And uploading, you can select what type, if you want them to be able to only select certain document types. if they can upload multiple files, that sort of thing. So you can change all those settings under the upload options. And you can also have them sign a form too. So if they're doing like a waiver, that sort of thing, you can add in a signature line. And so let's say you have a blanket waiver that everyone just needs to sign when they come to your facility. You can say waiver, signature, whatever you want it to be. And when it comes to them, it'll give them the signature option, and that you can link this directly to a website to have all of that input, and then you have a record going forward of their signature in a digital manner. If you're doing a waiver signature, I highly recommend adding a date to it. Check with your state for legal compliance, but I know for some of them, they do require a date option. So that's where the date picker would come into play for like today's date. So they are acknowledging that they signed it before doing the service, that sort of thing. Now for the fun stuff. We've built or there's some custom fields. So once you have made a form with some of these things, it becomes a custom field. And so you can actually use it here easier next time because it's just going to be in there for drag and drop already. So once you make one of these, that is not from the quick add, it goes there. And then you're going to hit save. Biggest tip that's going to help you the most. Always, always, always hit save. And then now to preview what the form is going to look like, I don't think it's going to show you because it is, let's see if I can change what I'm sharing. I don't think I can. So it would show you what the form looks like. And then to integrate, this is going to give you all the options. So most of the time it's going to be inline. So that just means wherever you're posting it, it acts like another block on your website. You can have it appear as a pop-up, a polite slide in. So normally this is appearing in the bottom right-hand corner of a screen. A sticky sidebar, this comes in from the screen, from the side of the screen. You can have activation options. Some of these are more applicable for like these three options. Inline, you kind of just leave it on always. But if it's a pop-up, so let's say you don't want them to see it all the time because you don't want that, like one you can deactivate once a lead is collected, deactivate it after showing them like 15 times or whatever. You don't want your customers who are coming in all the time to constantly have it potentially. So there's a lot of different customizations here. And then there's two options for getting it on your website. So there's an embed code. So if you copy the embed code, because I didn't select a number of times. So I didn't enter that. So that's why it gave me a little red error. I don't know if you saw that. So if you hit copy embed code, and then wherever you go, you're going to just be entering the code manually where you want it to show up or what page, whether that's the header code, that sort of thing. Or you can copy a form link. So you can do that and you can link it to a button. You can add it in an email. That sort of thing. If you're doing an email or a button or an email, I for sure would do inline. And you hit copy form link, and then wherever you go, you just paste the link in there. That's how some websites will ask you to do it. And from there, you should be good to go. The biggest thing is once you have it where you want it, go ahead and test your form. Go in there and enter your information and make sure that it records the contact. So now that we've built the form, I'm going to go ahead and just fill it out on the front end really quick. And I'm going to record a submission just so we have it. Okay. Oh, I forgot to tell you, you need to update your button text too. So down here, if you click on the button text, you can change this to submit or whatever you want your button to say and change your background of the button and everything accordingly. Um, so that is one more thing to make sure to do. Um, Now, going back into forms, I submitted the form. Excuse me. So now, if we go back to forms, which is under sites, and you go to analyze, you can see all of your responses. You can select what form if you're looking at specific forms. So, like this one, we did the contact form test. You can see how many views, how many responses. Um, and then this is going to give you statistics of how many people are seeing it, responses, how long it takes to take, and what your completion rate is for people who see the form and complete it. And then if you go into submissions, you'll be able to see their full answers. You can do it by timeline. It automatically populates a month up here. We have it set to the contact form test, but you can also just make it all forms to see them all at once. So right here, you can see that I submitted the form, the contact, and the email. If you hit these arrows, this expander arrow, that's going to pull it up on the sidebar with the answers that they gave. So this will be where you can see all of their answers. These also do show up in their profile, just not as cleanly. So this is the easiest way to see direct form answers is form submissions. And so favorite food, obviously I just randomly typed in select things. So this is going to be your best place to get those options. You can export it if you want it in a PDF. It'll tell you where people coming from and some data there, which is always good to know. And yeah, so that's the summary of forms. And if you have any additional questions about this stuff or get stuck, please let us know and we are happy to help.